Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we've got a truly wild explainer lined up for you. We're going to dive deep into this crazy intersection of extreme ideology, digital anonymity, and the dark web. Really, it's a story about how a seemingly utopian dream of just absolute unchecked freedom spiraled into one of the most unprecedented digital criminal empires in modern history. The sheer scale and audacity of this whole operation, it honestly changed how we view the internet forever. So let's just dive right into this. Picture this, right? It's a totally normal, quiet Tuesday afternoon back in October 2013. We're at the peaceful Glen Park Public Library in San Francisco. Sitting at a table is this 28-year-old guy. He's wearing jeans, a casual t-shirt, and he looks exactly like your average, everyday college student who's just cramming for midterms or catching up on some emails. But if you were to look at his screen, he definitely isn't writing a term paper. He actually has this highly classified administrative panel open, and he is quietly managing a global underworld marketplace that's responsible for billions of dollars in illegal transactions. He thought he was perfectly anonymous. He thought he was completely safe. But history was literally about to be made right there in the reading room. Now, the FBI had been hunting this guy for years, and they knew they couldn't just walk up and tap him on the shoulder to arrest him. Because if he noticed them approaching and closed his laptop, even for a single second, multiple layers of military-grade encryption would instantly lock the hard drive. The screen would go black, and boom, all the evidence tying him to this massive empire would be gone forever. So they had to execute this perfectly orchestrated tactical maneuver. Step 1. They just had to wait for him to log in and physically type out his master passwords. Step 2. Create a massive distraction. 2 undercover agents who were positioned right behind him suddenly erupted into the super loud, staged lovers' quarrel. They were shouting, pushing each other, just causing a massive scene. And naturally, like everyone else in the library, the young man instinctively turned his head to see what all the commotion was about. Step 3. In that exact split second, a female FBI agent swooped in from behind, snatched the open, unencrypted laptop right out from under his hands and secured it. In less than 10 seconds, the mastermind of the dark web was in handcuffs, and his digital vault was left wide open for the feds. Section 1. Building the Silk Road. So how exactly did an ordinary American guy become an online criminal mastermind? I mean, just look at the sheer duality of this guy's life. In the physical world, you have Ross Ulbricht. Born in Texas to a middle-class family, he was this brilliant, scholarship-winning physics grad. He took yoga classes, he'd grab coffee with his girlfriend, and he lived an incredibly mundane, normal physical existence. But then, over in the digital realm, you have his alter ego, the Dread Pirate Roberts. Named after the faceless, mythic character from the movie The Princess Bride, this persona was an anonymous, unquestioned, dark web drug lord wielding immense power. Russ lived this exhausting double life. But the Dread Pirate Roberts wasn't just some random criminal alias. The persona was actually born out of a very specific, radical libertarian ideology. Ross had this deep-seated belief that the government had absolutely no right whatsoever to dictate what consenting adults could buy, sell, or consume. Basically, he wanted to create an absolutely free market, completely detached from state control. But here's the thing. A radical ideology needs actual tools to become a reality, right? And Ross found the perfect storm of technology to make it happen. First, you have the Tor network. This is software that completely hides a user's identity and location. It does this by bouncing their internet connection through multiple servers all around the world. So it's routing data from Germany to Russia to Brazil in a fraction of a second, which makes it mathematically impossible for law enforcement to trace the original IP address. Second, Bitcoin. This was a decentralized digital currency that was completely free from any government or bank control. No names, no social security numbers, no identities, just anonymous wallet addresses. So by combining Tor's absolute anonymity with Bitcoin's untraceable money, Ross essentially found the missing puzzle pieces to build a completely invisible underground economy. Let's walk through this timeline together to see just how rapidly this whole thing escalated. Ross was born in 1984 and was originally on a very promising academic path. But by 2010, he drops out of his PhD program at Penn State, entirely obsessed with this libertarian philosophy of absolute freedom. He moves back home to Austin, Texas, and in January 2011, he literally starts coding an eBay-style marketplace right from his bedroom. He names it the Silk Road, which is a nod to the ancient, free-flowing trade routes between the East and West. And when it finally launches in February 2011, well, there are obviously no sellers on it yet, so what does Ross do? He literally grows his own psychedelic mushrooms in a makeshift lab inside his house, takes high-quality photos of them, and becomes his own first seller just to kickstart the platform. He even created fake customer accounts to leave glowing reviews on his own products. He was basically acting as a one-man marketing department to get the ball rolling. It is the ultimate kind of absurd irony, right? A future global cartel mastermind having to write his own fake reviews to get his business off the ground. And the ball didn't just roll. I mean, it became an absolute avalanche. Ross engineered the site exactly like a standard Silicon Valley tech startup. He just applied that model to the black market. He took a flat 6% commission on every single transaction. What started with small amounts of homegrown mushrooms rapidly expanded. Before long, the platform grew to host thousands of sellers dealing in cocaine, heroin, stolen data, fake passports, and even weapons. As the volume skyrocketed into the millions and the value of Bitcoin began to surge alongside it, that 6% cut quietly turned this 20-something physics dropout into a multi-millionaire. We're talking about him raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars on a monthly basis. He had essentially created the Amazon of illegal goods.
Section 2. Tracking the fatal mistake.
Now, an operation moving millions of dollars in illegal goods obviously doesn't stay hidden forever, even on the dark web. The pressure was mounting. Back in June 2011, U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer publicly demanded the site be shut down, calling it an unprecedented attempt to peddle drugs online. Naturally, the media completely exploded. And ironically, this national news coverage actually drove 10 times more traffic to Silk Road. But it also put immense pressure on the FBI, the DEA, and Homeland Security to find the creator. But here is the crazy part. It wasn't some high-tech cyber sting that cracked the case. It was old-fashioned, meticulous detective work by an IRS agent named Gary Alford. Alford reasoned that Silk Road must have been promoted somewhere on the regular everyday internet when it first launched. So he spent hours scouring archived 2011 drug and libertarian forums. Step 1 and 2. He finds a user named Altoid hyping up the Silk Road on a mushroom enthusiast forum called the Shroomery. Step 3. Alford then tracks that username Altoid over to a totally separate Bitcoin forum, where the user was asking for some complex IT help for a dark web startup. And then, step 4. Right at the bottom of that post, the user made one careless, absolutely catastrophic error. He left his real personal email address, rossulbricht@gmail.com. I mean, wow. The mastermind of absolute anonymity, a guy utilizing military-grade encryption, used his own personal Gmail account. That one tiny digital footprint completely unraveled the entire untraceable empire. Section 3. Betrayal and corrupt agents. But before the FBI could even finalize their raid, the story takes this highly complex, unexpected turn. Because this wasn't just a simple story of cops catching robbers. Behind the scenes, it was absolute chaos. The immense power and sheer amount of money floating around the dark web actually began to corrupt the very people sworn to dismantle it. 2 federal agents assigned to the case became completely blinded by greed. First, you have Carl Force, an experienced DEA agent. Officially, he posed undercover as a drug dealer named Knob to get close to the Dread Pirate Roberts. But unofficially, he created a second, rogue identity called French Maid to secretly extort and blackmail Ross. He was extracting hundreds of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin while playing both sides of the law. Meanwhile, you have Sean Bridges, a Secret Service agent. He used his high-level administrative access to literally steal Bitcoin directly out of the accounts of arrested Silk Road sellers. Both of these federal agents were actively exploiting Ross's extreme paranoia and his vast, untraceable wealth for their own personal gain. And all that manipulation and growing paranoia really began to eat Ross alive. In early 2013, an actual employee of the Silk Road named Curtis Green was arrested by the DEA and agreed to cooperate. The corrupt agent Carl Force used Green's administrative account to seize platform funds, intentionally making it look to Ross like Green had stolen the money and betrayed the empire. Terrified that Green was going to expose him to the authorities, the nonviolent, idealistic student crossed a point of no return. Believing he was talking to a cartel hitman, Ross sent this chilling encrypted message. I have never killed a man or had one killed before, but it is the right move in this case. He actually paid a staggering $80,000 in Bitcoin to have his employee assassinated. Now, the hit was entirely faked by the corrupt DEA agent, who actually staged photos with fake blood just to secure that massive payment. But Ross didn't know that. When he received the gruesome photos, he released the funds and expressed absolutely no remorse, stating he was basically forced to take action to protect his empire. The power and the desperate need to maintain it had fundamentally altered who he was. Section 4. Judgment and Digital Legacy. So this brings us back full circle to that San Francisco library in October 2013. The arrest was made, but the legal battle for his life was really just beginning. Jump to January 2015, and the trial kicks off in a New York federal court. Ross's defense team tried to argue that, sure, he had created the site, but he had handed off the Dread Pirate Roberts title to someone else a long time ago, claiming he was just a fall guy. But the forensic evidence? It was an insurmountable mountain. The FBI had successfully located the main server sitting in an Icelandic data center, which contains the entire unencrypted database of the marketplace. Furthermore, that laptop they seized in the library, while he was still logged in, contained the active administrative dashboard, precise accounting evidence of over $174 million in recorded profits, and extensive, highly detailed chat logs. And those logs detailed not just global drug trafficking, but explicitly ordering hits on those who threatened the operation. But honestly, perhaps the most damning evidence of all was found right in a hidden, encrypted folder on that very laptop, Ross's own personal, meticulously kept diary. In it, he proudly documented his entire journey from Austin to San Francisco, writing, "Silk Road is my legacy. This is what I was meant to do." It wasn't the FBI's words that sealed his fate in front of the jury. It was his own private admissions of pride and total ownership over the criminal enterprise. The jury ended up taking less than 4 hours to find him guilty on all 7 charges, which included drug trafficking, money laundering, and computer hacking. And the sentences handed down present a stark, almost unbelievable contrast. The corrupt federal agents, Carl Force and Sean Bridges, pleaded guilty to money laundering and theft, and they received roughly 6 and 7 years in prison, respectively. Ross Ulbricht, on the other hand, received 2 life sentences plus an additional 40 years, with absolutely no possibility of parole. He was sent to the ADX Florence Supermax prison, which is a brutal facility designed specifically for terrorists and the absolute most dangerous criminals in the federal system, to spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. Even today, this case remains the subject of an intense, unending debate. On one side, you have the firm stance of the sentencing judge, who argued that Silk Road was not some harmless academic experiment. It was a massive, unprecedented criminal venture that actively facilitated drug dealing to millions and resulted in actual murder-for-hire plots. To the court, a severe, permanent example just had to be set to prove that the dark web is not beyond the reach of the law. But on the flip side, the Free Ross movement and his vast network of supporters argue that he is a nonviolent, first-time offender who has been excessively and cruelly punished. They view him as a political prisoner caught in the crosshairs of a failed war on drugs. They point out that white-collar criminals who steal billions or pharmaceutical executives who fuel real-world addiction rarely face such draconian permanent sentences. Petitions for clemency have actually reached multiple presidential administrations over the years, but as of today, the conviction and the double life sentence stand firm. The story of Ross Ulbricht is basically a profound modern tragedy and a mirror reflecting our digital age. You have a brilliant mind who pursued a philosophy of pure freedom only to build a platform that ended up facilitating widespread crime and violence. Today, the library chair where he was arrested still sits quietly in San Francisco, occupied by daily readers who probably have no idea history was made right where they are sitting. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really think about. In a world where cryptocurrency and encrypted networks can grant us absolute, untraceable freedom, how do we actually balance that power with responsibility? Technology grants absolute freedom, but at what cost? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating case with me today. Keep asking questions and keep learning. Catch you next time.